Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So, sorry, everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, kept you waiting.
Yeah. So sorry, everyone. But now we are back on track. So I'm going to try to skip some bits just because I'm conscious that at 1 p.m. you need to leave because this is your lunch time. I know. So I'm going to try to be as succinct as I can. So the presentation we have for today, guys, thank you again for inviting me, is Power BI, the one-click reporting tool for project controls. And we want to present some kind of ideas and ways of working, how to produce high-impact dashboards at the click of a button with Power BI. Having said that, we want to reduce as much as possible the use of the spreadsheets that we so much love, but at the same time we so much hate, right? So for today, I want to start from this scenario, this thinking about usually our project status reports, they take time to produce, right? And we need to iterate them every single period, every single update is going to take us the same amount of time. We are trying to consolidate different spreadsheets, different data sources, different software, and that takes time, is stressful. Well, most of the time we don't like that part of the project controls process, right? So in our project controls environment, it's really common to use so many data sources, many software that are out there that are actually helping us to excel in the way we kind of produce intelligent information for our team to be aware what is the project status. But at the same time, they help us, but there are so many different tools and they are working individually, isolated one of the other, that sometimes it becomes really challenging to bring them all together, right? So that's why we think that the use of business intelligence tools are going to gather all that information all together. It's going to provide this one single source of truth that we can deliver timely and in a reliable manner, right? So the goal of that session is we're going to talk about Power BI and how we can use that in project controls. That's that kind of I'm certified as a Microsoft data analyst. That's one of the latest certification I got, and I've been involved in this for about 3.5 years now, using Power BI business analytical tools to bring together our data, kind of leveraging on the data we are producing in a really good way with so many tools, but sometimes we just lack of that common ground where we can pull all together, right? So this kind of the outline, we're going to go through the reporting cycle in project controls. We're going to see how we can use Power BI. I'm going to show you how we can interact with using Power BI, that is our kind of business intelligence tools, and how we can complement that with some other tools that are going to help us to kind of excel in the reporting cycle. Okay. So the first thing is, as always, we need to understand why we want to see and implement a new software, like in this case, Power BI. Could be Power BI, could be Click, could be Tableau. So many softwares out there. They are all good in terms of business intelligence. I'm just kind of bringing this down to Power BI because it's actually that tool I'm using, but I don't think that one is better or worse. I just think that they all have their own bits and their own benefits and kind of strengths and flaws. And I think that the strongest point of Power BI compared to the other ones is the potentially the flexibility that you get with Power BI because it is part of the Microsoft Office 365 suite. Just because of that, you have this kind of interaction and easiness of interface with some other tools that belongs to Office, like SharePoint, like Power Apps, like Power Automate, like Excel, like any other Microsoft tool. So it's easier for Power BI to interact and connect to all these different sources. Then other than that, I think that all the other business intelligence tools are similar or are producing the same outputs. But understanding the problem is the key concept, why we want to look at these new tools that are out there. If we kind of turn to one side and say, okay, what is happening with our current outlook in the project controls reporting cycle? Because we need to bear in mind that we want to use business intelligence tools to kind of speed up, streamline the reporting cycle. Please don't get confused that you are going to use a business intelligence tool like Power BI to replace your primary P6 and do the planning in there, or to replace any cost management software to do the cost management in Power BI. That's not for what Power BI is for. Power BI is a visualization tool, is a reporting tool that it is really good to bring together your data. And that data is going to come off the back of the different software, of the different packages that you have running throughout your project, your organization. Okay, so Power BI is not here to replace any of our project control tools. It's just, let's say, a tool that is going to allow us to bring together our data. So when we look at our project controls reporting cycle at the moment, I mean, I'm not going to say that this is kind of the same for every single organization. Potentially, I'm going to be kind of pessimistic talking about this. I know, I'm pretty sure that most of you guys are doing really great with your project controls reporting cycle and the project controls processes overall. But traditionally, let's start from there. Traditionally, project controls usually involves a lot of manual repetitive tasks. So we generally use a lot Excel. Excel is the predominant tool in our environment, and we need to, it's really hard to track changes in those spreadsheets. You receive one via email, and then you get the following one, version 2, and then you have the administration department that sends their data of the staff and the people, and then you have the quality department sending another spreadsheet in a different format and a different outlook. So it is hard to deal with all those ever-changing formats, right? So it becomes really time-consuming to collate all that information and consolidate that in one single spreadsheet or in a couple of spreadsheets. And they keep changing. So next period, next month, they're going to send you a different format, a different look of their Excels, because they are trying to address on other needs they have. And that is kind of very difficult for us to deal with, right? So traditionally, it takes a long time to process our data. And we actually spend really short time to evaluate, assess, and analyze the data so we can take action on them, and we can make informed decisions from our data, what the data is saying. We spend very little on that. So the most traditional scenario we see is that data analysts in project controls, they are usually in this scenario. And I feel so identified with this picture. I've been that guy so many times in the past, and potentially some of you as well, where I'm trying to collate as much information as I can for my project. And I spend loads and loads of hours seated behind the desk, trying to crunch my numbers using Excel, pivot table. Sometimes I'm trying to produce some macros with Visual Basic in my spreadsheet. For what? For in the end, just produce a one-off final report, right? And that I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to redo from scratch the next period submission. So all that effort we spend is really time consuming, it's really exhausting. We actually have to do that all over again every single period. And actually one study I saw out there that was kind of analyzed some projects in the construction industry, they were saying this is a kind of a software provider who was analyzing this for cost management, I believe. And they were saying that about 61% of our time we spend as project analysts or project controls.
Getting lost on why we would allow it to be left there.
Okay, can you put mute on your microphone, please? I'm hearing some background noises. So we were saying that we spend 61% of the time on non-value activities. And that means that we spend time actually fixing formulas in Excel, trying to figure out where this cell is calculated from, and trying to collate different spreadsheets. Sorry, Martin, can you hear me? Can you mute your microphone, please? Thank you, if you can. So collating internal, external reports, collating data coming from so many different software, that's kind of the main task of a project data analyst, right? And that is really time consuming. And we spend so little in the things that are actually adding value to our project performance, like, for example, spending time on processing and doing like formal change management processes based on the data and the performance so far, or forecasting or analyzing the trends that our data is telling us. So we actually spend really little time on those valuable activities, and we want to change that. That's kind of the things that we want to change from our industry, right? So we want to move from this side, from this scenario with the guy crunching the numbers, spending loads of hours and doing that all over again in the next period. And we want to move to this one, where we are starting to use BI analytics, business intelligence. And what that means is that we're going to keep capturing raw data from our different tools, different software, even field management tools that we capture data, but we are going to use the components that are within Power BI or any business intelligence tool. Like, for example, we have a component that is the Power Query that actually it also exists in Excel, right? You can also have Power Query in Excel, and you're going to use that to kind of shape your data, transform the data and to automate that process. So all those transformations are going to get recorded as steps behind the scenes of your data capture. And those are going to be automated. So anytime you get new information, it's going to go through those processes, and then the output is going to be clean and as you need that to produce the reports. Then we're going to use a Power Pivot. That is the one that is going to allow us to model our data. So let's imagine we have data from schedule, like data from the cost side, data from human resources, from quality, from safety. So we need to find a common ground within them, because if I want to click on one side of a report, I want that to be filtered and to show me all the data that is related to that area, to that activity code, whatever it is, and show me what is the time frame, what is the cost that we spend, what are the human resources that are kind of involved in that section of the project. So that data needs to be modeled, needs to be glued together, all our different data sources. And finally, once all those steps are in place, then you can do your Power BI data visualization. That's just bringing visuals over the table so people can actually consume that and get insights from your data, analyzing the trends and so on. So that's giving a lot of efficiency to many different sectors. And we can put some examples like in there. Like, for example, Lenovo has reported 95% of efficiency increase just because they are using business intelligence tools. And then another from a different industry, PepsiCo, they have reported that they have reduce that time they spend in reporting production for at least 90%. So it's a 90% of reduction in the time they spend preparing reports. And that's incredible. That's kind of, if you translate that into money, the amount of money that you can save, just because you will need less people to produce reports, and you will have more time to actually understand, assess, analyze, and take action from your data, okay? So now is the time that's the part why we need that. So what is the current outlook? What is the benefit we're gonna get, and why we need that? So now if we deep dive into Power BI, we can see that obviously Power BI is provided by Microsoft. It's an interface simple enough to create our own reports adjusted to our own needs, right? The components we are gonna find within Power BI are going to be the Power Query that I already mentioned. We use that to shape our data, to transform the data in the way we need that. And those steps are going to get recorded. So if I open Power BI right now, let's say, there are going to be some options on the menu bar that is going to allow me to access the Power Query. So that transform data button that you see here, that's the one that will allow me within Power BI to click there. And now I'm going to transform the data. And when I'm applying some transformation, like, for example, I want to unpivot tables, I want to transpose, I want to change columns, remove columns, change the name, change the data types, all those transformations are going to get recorded. So that's kind of a screenshot of the Power Query inside Power BI. And what is effectively telling you is that you're going to have the arrangement of all that data set that you have there, and you're going to start applying some transformations. And those steps are going to get recorded behind the scenes. You don't see that. You're going to just see that in the Power Query. And every time this new data gets updated and a data source, a new data source comes in, then this data is going to go through all these steps automated for you, and it's going to give you the output that you need. Once you have completed that, then you go to the Power Pivot that you use to model your data. And modeling your data just means something like this. So you're going to go to a section of that program in Power BI. You're going to have each of these tables is a data source. I don't have, well, I thought I have an animation here. So each of these tables, for example, this the drilling, the perforation of this project is on this table. This is one data source, is coming from one Excel, for example. This contractual data is coming from my other software, is another data set, and I will need to model that. That means generate relationship between the different data sets using some sort of coding structure. So basically, if you want to kind of make intelligent visuals from your data, you're going to need to somehow match them up, match your data sources using some sort of coding structure that allow us to bring this data together. So if, for example, you have a WBS on the schedule, and then you have control accounts on your cost management section, you need to match them up. You need to map them out, how the control accounts are kind of connected against the WBS that you have in your schedule side of things. So that's kind of some exercise you need to do outside of Power BI, but Power BI is going to allow you to glue that together in one single report. And finally, you have the Power BI data visualization. That's basically just you have a blank canvas, and you start, you take the role of Michelangelo, and you start kind of painting your Sistine Chapel on Power BI using the pre-made custom visuals the Power BI has already, and you just need to input the data sets that you have already transformed and modeled into the software. And you can get an output like this, and it's actually a true example of what we have. So this is Power BI. This is what you can do. This is just one example of some client at some point asked me. So they were using spreadsheets and having a database of all the boreholes they were drilling for this project. And they were asking me, oh, you see, I'm usually presenting this data in a very kind of, boring format where you just see the list of boreholes and what is the status, what the system is saying, and that's it. That's my report. Can you use Power BI to enhance that visualization for us to take decisions on that? So we prepared this for them, and it was just using georeference information of the location of those boreholes, and I could, using the database, I could depict on the map. I could say which boreholes were already complete, are the blue ones, which are in progress. So I can see I have 4 work fronts, one here, one here, one here, and one here. They were using actually 4 machines for doing the drilling. And all the green boreholes are the ones that are remaining, that they haven't started yet. So for them, it was pretty clear what the status of the project was. And then you can use some slicers that are kind of filters that I could say, okay, just show me the north zone, right? And I will click on this one, I will zoom in, and I will get all the metrics adjusted to that zone, or a specific section that is kind of a smaller part of a zone, right? And all those metrics, when I click on them, will get adjusted to just give me the information, the insight of that particular zone. So what is the progress? What is the drilling amount? The man hours we have spent so far? So that's the way you can use Power BI to visually represent the progress. That's one example on progress. And then the other thing you will need to know is that with Power BI, there are so many ways you can connect your data. And in my organization, we have defined these 5 connectivity levels, where we can start from the lowest bottom level, that is level 5, we just branded that way. That is just using your Power BI and your laptop, and then your Excel file in your laptop. It's you against the world, right? It's you on your own. And that's the level 5, that's solo journey. So it's just a connection to a local drive using your Power BI in your computer. Then you can kind of step up the game, and you can connect, for example, go to a level 3 where you actually are connected using your Power BI in your computer. You are connected to data sources that are on the cloud. So for example, you are connected to a Dropbox, to a Google Drive, you are connected to, I don't know, SharePoint, OneDrive, etc. And then people will have access to those data sources. So they will have access to OneDrive, to Google Drive. They can make changes live on the data sources, and then automatically you can just click on refresh in your Power BI, and then you will get that information coming into your computer that's connecting to gathering data from the cloud. And that's more collaborative because there are people interacting with you, changing the data sources on the cloud. So that's why we call that collaborative journey. And finally, you could even step up even further and go to the level 1 where you have live dashboard and you're connected through a SQL connection to a database. So you're connected to, I don't know, if you're using, I don't know, P6, you're connected to SQL database of P6, or you're using AACE Prism, you're connected to that database directly. So any transaction you add to your software, it will immediately get reflected on your Power BI report, okay, instantly, okay? And that's kind of the way we want to work out and roll out our report, to have this automated cycle in there. So the best way to go through that is, before even opening Power BI, you actually want to spend some time is defining requirement. You want to define the requirement. What is your end user expecting from your report? What they want to see. That's the best way to start your report without Power BI or without any business intelligence tool. Spending time with your team, define a requirement, and most of the time the requirements are already all set up because you are already reporting using Excel, or you are reporting with any other software, but you just want to bring more data sources together. So your current report could be the requirements, the starting point. Then you will know what else you can bring with Power BI. But the most important is at least to meet the basic requirement your end user have, because it happens to me that at the beginning, when I was just starting my journey here, I was so excited to bring different visuals and more visualizations in there. But actually, the people who were going to consume that report, they were not care, they wouldn't care about those new visuals, right? They just want to see, analyze the project performance in the way they are used to see that, and that's it. Even if you bring more visual and so on, it's just going to be noise for them, you know? So spending time to define requirements, defining reporting architecture, that means how your different data sources are in place, like what tools you are using, what tools you want to connect with, how often they get updated, who is accountable of them. So that's the reporting architecture you need to set up from the very beginning. And then finally, just then you can open Power BI and start doing the job in there. So there are so many ways to connect Power BI to different data sources. One will be the level 5. You remember the level 5? Level 5, local drive connection. You will open Power BI. You will say get data, and you can connect to an Excel, to CSV file, whatever it is. And it's just going to be the matter of locating that file in your local drive. And then you can start pulling those data sets into Power BI and creating visuals. But then you could do a Power BI cloud connection where, as I mentioned, you will go to get data, but instead of selecting Excel, you will go, for example, to the option of web. And if I will have, I could do, I'm running out of time right now. So if I could do a demo with you, I could send you a link on Google Drive. That is a public cloud service. You will have access to a data set, like an spreadsheet, for example, and that spreadsheet will be connected to my Power BI here in my computer in the UK. I'm based in UK right now. So just because you are in the other side of the world, accessing my Google Drive account, you can start changing that data source. And then when I'm showing that on my computer, sharing my screen, I could just click refresh and I could see everything that you have populated on the other side of the world directly, without any intermediate step, without you sending me an Excel file or an email with any update. I don't need that. I'm connected directly to the source. So that's kind of how this should work, okay? So I'm going to skip all this. It was a workshop to do with you, but well, time is not good now. You can connect also to a SQL database. You will just need to go get data, SQL Server. Those are kind of pre-made APIs, connectors that Power BI provides and makes available for us. So we can just use them directly and start connecting to a SQL database. You will need to know that the server name and the database name, and you will need to have the credentials to log into that database. So you need to have some privileges to IT privileges to make that connection. So just to put some example how you can work with Power BI and some other tools within that Microsoft Office 365 and what you can actually achieve. Okay, Power Apps is another service from Microsoft that allows you to build these custom business apps, and you can then open that app on your mobile, and these are really low code, no code, so you don't really need to be a programmer, a coding expert to pull this in place. So we're going to make an example of how you can create from Primavera P6 data, how you can prepare a Power App without using any code, right? And it's so easy, and then you can replicate that potentially within your organization if you have access to Power BI, to Power Apps. That is usually part of the Office 365 tool. So we're going to use P6. We're going to connect that to Power Apps using SharePoint as a data repository, and then we're going to report with Power BI. So basically here, I'm doing an export from my P6. This is my program P6. I'm just going to use a spreadsheet. I'm going to export my activities. I'm going to use a template. Basically, I just want to make sure that my activity IDs, actual, my start and finish date are in there. And with that, I'm good to go. So I can just export that one really quick. Let me check if I can forward that a little bit. I can go, that's the export. It's really important you create a table before bringing this to Power Apps, because table is the way you communicate between your data sets and these other tools like Power Apps, Power BI. So creating a table within that Excel is really important. Then you go to your SharePoint, you create a new list. So probably you didn't see that. So I'm just in my company SharePoint, I go to create new list. I'm creating a new list off the back of that Excel, that export from P6 with all the activities. I'm creating a new list, and I just need to upload that information. I'm selecting that file, and then I just need to identify each of the kind of data types for each of the columns. I'm just gonna select all the data types. So if I have a date, if I have a start date, I need to say, okay, that's a date before I move on, right? So yeah, once that's ready, I just click OK. Let me just skip that one. I just click OK, and it's gonna come like this. This is the Power BI report that's gonna be connected off the back of the Power App that I'm creating from the SharePoint list. So I'm gonna run display. So I have, this is the report. It's a very simple report that has all my activities to start, finish, date. So this is the SharePoint list I just created by uploading that Excel file. It's really simple, just an upload. And now the thing is that Office 365 is really good because everything is integrated inside of that. That's why I like Power BI as well. It's part of that Office 365. And then I can go to this SharePoint list, and I can say, I want to integrate. And with that, I can create automatically a Power App without the use of any code. So if you see here, I'm going to integrate Power App, create an app. I just name that app. I'm going to call this P6 updates. And with that, it's just going to start creating my app. It's just going to take a little while. I'm going to move that forward. And now you can see here, the app has already been created. And this is the app I'm getting without the use of any code. And this app is going to allow me to input my updates. So I can go into one activity, I can select one activity of my program, and then I can change the status code from not started to complete, and all that information can come back directly to your P6 at any point. So, and also can be reflected on your Power BI report if you have connected that to the cloud. And basically, I have already done that preparation works behind the scenes. So this report is connected to this app. It just by setting up that data sources. So if I go to this activity and I change these activities, at the moment it's not started. I'm going to click there, edit this one. I'm going to put actual hours 200, right? I'm going to change the dates and all that just to make differences. And I'm just going to forward this. I can attach files to this app. And once this has been completed, I'm going to do another exercise, another activity. And once that is completed, you see that the actuals are coming in. And then I just come back to my Power BI. I just need to click refresh. And once I click refresh, then my whole report is going to capture that data that is on the cloud, that is on a SharePoint list at this moment. And the SharePoint list is just the data repository that is collating the information from the app, so from the Power Apps. And now my report is going to is going to get those updates. So you can see here is the 200, and you can see on the S-curve is also getting that same information. So it's just a quick example for you to kind of grasp how easy it could be to integrate your different tools within your Primavera, doing an export using your Power Apps, SharePoint list, and all together connecting that to your Power BI report just to get updates. So that was one example of what we can do. Then I have another example with BIM, with Revit. So how I can connect my Power BI report to Revit. I don't have time to go through that, I guess, because you're gonna need to leave now. But we could create some kind of 3D visualization of your project. In this case, it was a bridge. You can have all the metric, all the volumes in there, and you can click, like I can click those pillars in here, and all the metrics are gonna get a specified filter down just for the pillars I'm selecting. And I can see, I can integrate my my Revit model to my schedule. This schedule is coming from P6, and that's what I'm saying. Like we can merge and integrate different data sources. So I can click on those activities, and then the schedule is also get updated, get filtered for the activities that I'm looking in this, right? So that's just one other example. This is kind of the video, and you can see how I can update this report from Revit into Power BI, and then you can have the abilities to select, click. So I select this slicer. This is the west bound of the bridge. Whenever I click on that one, all the schedule is going to be filtered for that section of the bridge, and all my volumes is going to be the same. So that's kind of what I can do. But I'm going to move on, and this is the last use case I want to show to you guys, just to see what you can do with Power BI. This is a final one before you will need to go. And this is a dashboard that is built off the back of my Primavera P6, right? Sometimes we just take so much time to kind of get this P6 input all that information in there, and then it's so hard to communicate that to our team members, right? Because we generally export this long PDF, like 90 pages of PDF, and no one is actually reading through them, right? They just want to see some executive information, and then it's going to leave that to the planner to figure out what is happening, how people need to get this back on track. So connecting data from P6 to Power BI, so many ways you can do that. You can do copy paste from Excel. You can export XML format. You can export XCR, that are the native format from P6, or you can just connect Power BI directly to the SQL database of P6. Either way, what you want to get is to automate that process. You don't want to kind of start kind of exporting, copy and pasting Excel data from P6 to Excel, start trying to manipulate that data, consolidate that, formulate that Excel to show a report. That's really time consuming, and we don't want to spend that time that way, right? So this is a quick example of how you can produce a report off the back of P6 using Power BI. And this kind of how I kind of come down to the topic of this session is basically we want to have a one-click reporting tool to produce high impact dashboard without relying on any spreadsheet. And this is exactly the case. This video is exactly showing you that. We are going to create this dashboard that is already, well, pre-built in Power BI, but I want to update this one without using any Excel at the click of one button, right? How we can do that? For example, the latest update I have here is up to the 30th May 21. right? That's the latest submission I got. And there are so many metrics in there. I'm not going to focus on explaining all the metrics. You just need to know that there are so many. I'm assessing here the schedule quality, the schedule integrity of this. So I'm measuring how many activities have high duration, high total flow, are missing logic, have a high lags, right? And I can see that for every single submission. So I'm going to go to this piece. This is the one I have. This is the 30th of May, and I have 5,200 activities, right? And that's exactly the same number I have in my Power BI, right? 5,200 activities. And I can see the status. So this is the status of the report at the end of May. And you can see my S-curve early and late. And you can see where the actual is 49 progress. I have a delta negative of -23. I'm kind of bordering the lower end, kind of the late curve. So that means
the thing
on this project, and I can break this down even further by showing the same information for the overall project, but now this
already has it like
each of my single disciplines, because I coded this up in my P6. So I have an activity code in my P6 that refers to disciplines, so I can easily deploy this by each of the discipline levels. So what it takes to update this, so we are not going to use any spreadsheet, we are just going to do a simple export. I already have my schedule update at the end of June, and that's the one I want to update. So I'm opening that one. What I need to do is once I open that one, I just need to export that one. So I have 5,267 activities in that new submission. I export that file. It's going to come out as an XCR file, right? And that XCR file, I'm just going to save that in a folder. So I have a folder with a full history of my schedule updates from the period 5 up to the period 13, and with my baseline along them, right? I'm just going to save the new period submission, that in this case is year 21 and is the period number 3, but at the end of June this year 21. I'm going to export that. It's going to fall into that folder, and my Power BI report is all set up already to read from that folder. So I don't need to do anything more than just exporting that into that folder. That new submission is in there with the end of June date. And now I can come back to Power BI and I can just say refresh. That's exactly what I want to get with this presentation. You to see that there is some new technologies that we can use to automate this process without relying on spreadsheets. I just exported an XCR. Now I just click refresh, obviously because there is a good amount of effort and work I've done before setting this reporting up. But once it's set, I don't need to do anything more. I just need to keep dragging and dropping my XCR files, and then every submission, I'm going to get my report updated immediately. So I'm just going to forward this a little bit because it's going to take like 1 minute to complete the refresh. And once I finalize that, you're going to see 5,267 is going to finalize that refresh. And then you're going to see that here is going to start. I'm going to select the new update that is going to be the end of June. So I'm going to forward a little bit more. Then it's almost there, right? And finally, the refresh is completed. It takes like 1 or 2 minutes just because it's a really large amount of data. I think we have more than 40,000 activities in the full history of all the XCR here. So 40,000 takes 1 minute or 2. And then you now can see that June is there. And now I can change my slicer to show the data from June. And all the information, kind of the variances against the P80 date, the deviations against the baseline, the schedule integrity analysis, I can see the full trend. And this is important because I have the full range of all the XCRs from the very beginning of the project. I can see what is the trend. So this is the first submission, the second submission, the third one. So all the history of my project is in there. So it's not just looking at the cumulative latest status, but I can see the full history of that and how that is evolving on time, right? I can go to my schedule quality. I can click on June now, and all my dashboard is going to switch to June. And now you can see that 5,267 activities and all the metrics that comes along the quality integrity analysis for my schedule. So I can see that score is 87% right now. You can see if that is improving over time, so you can see the trends on each of the metrics. And I can move forward. I can come back to my S-curve. Now I need to change the slicer to depict the information of the latest period of date. So I just need to do a click to say, show me June date. And now the dashboard has got updated. Now it's showing me 57% of progress and minus 22 of delta, right? And then you can review that, not only overall progress, you can go by disciplines. You can see I'm still kind of approaching the lake curve, and now you can see that data date is 27th of June. That got automatically updated off the back of that XCR file I dropped down, drag and drop on that folder. So I just need to change my filter over here. I need to update that to the latest period, that is June. I'm going to switch that, and you're going to see that all of a sudden, all my report will get updated with the new information. So I have my early and late, and I have my actual progress, and I can see I'm coming back on track on OLE. In civils, I'm falling behind, and you can see each of the disciplines, how that is performing and evolving across time, right? So that's really a fast way, a very quickly way to analyze your progress, having your report in place without even using any spreadsheet. So that's kind of what I wanted to provide to you guys, that this a summary of what you can achieve with Power BI, how you can integrate different data sources without using spreadsheets in between. And I think that data visualization and the use of business intelligence tools connecting to real-time or near real-time data sources can provide decision makers with relevant and graphical information that makes their job easier to understand the project status and also how they can take action, right? So it's an effective way to share and communicate timely in a compelling proposition. So that's really important, right? How we share and communicate timely, because it's not going to be effective if we end up producing good reports, but they come like 2 weeks or 1 month after we have completed the job, right? So that timely sense of submitting information is also really important, and that's kind of using one-click reporting tool is kind of the desired objective, right? And we can keep this in a single source of truth because we collate everything just using one Power BI report that will bring together data from cost, data from schedule, data from BIM, and so on. So that's kind of what I wanted to provide this to you guys. I know I have 7 minutes over time, but hopefully you found this insightful. And if you want to expand more, well, we can follow up with that in another session, right? Thank you so much, Romani.
Thank you, Giancarlo. That was a great presentation. Sorry, everyone, we lost some 15 to 20 minutes. I don't know if we have some time for Q&A, maybe like 10 minutes. Is that okay with everyone? Any question?
Hey, Jean, this is Vishu. Had a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Number one, how does Power BI compare with Tableau?
With Tableau?
Yes. Any thoughts on that?
Tableau and Power BI are quite similar. They are kind of business intelligence tools. As I mentioned before, Power BI kind of benefits that you can find in Power BI is that the ability it has to integrate and interface to the whole Microsoft Office suite. So for me, that's kind of where Power BI excels. Tableau is really good in data visualizations. So the graphs, the visuals it has by default, I will say Tableau is better than Power BI in that regard. But sometimes it's a balance, right? For me, more important of the visual is how I can collate my different data sources, and Power BI has the strongest point in there. So that's why my preference always is gonna go for Power BI. Then there is this kind of very well-known assessment that I think is the Gartner quadrant that they issue every year. And the Gartner quadrant, they have this business intelligence category, and you will find that Power BI is at the top of the Gartner quadrant. really, really far away from all the competitors, and Tableau is going to be there, but it's going to be really, really left behind in terms of what Gartner Quadrant is telling you.
I see. And secondly, you talk about Power Apps, right? Where you had one slide where you're talking about updating your activities.
Yeah.
Now, technically, it looks very tedious. So I'm assuming it's just a add-on tool, but you're technically not going to use that, right, on a regular basis.
Can you speak a little louder?
So updating your activities in the Power App itself, would you do that on the Power App, or would you prefer doing it on P6 schedule? I think that would be much more faster, isn't it?
I would say like they will be different setups. You know, for example, when you are a scheduler or a planner and you need to update your P6, the way you get the information is, as far as I've done that before, is I will set up some meetings, or I will get some spreadsheets from my people that is on the field, or if that is they're on the office producing the design, or if they're building that on the field, I will need to set up some kind of meeting to get those updates. So what we are trying to avoid is that intermediate steps here. So we will speed up and streamline that process. So basically, if we want to set up an app to collect that data input, basically how we want to use that is not basically the planner to input those actuals in there. What we want is that the person who is delivering the job, whether it is the designer or whether it is the field engineer, the site engineer, he's on the ground. He knows that he has accomplished that foundation. He goes to the mobile, opens their app, okay, mark it down, completed. And that completed, when he marks that down, it's going to travel directly to your Power BI report. It's going to get updated. And then the planner can do their job without kind of spending tons and tons of meetings, setting up meetings with everyone just to get the update. He will just go to the report, check that, do an export if he needs so, and then we'll do an import to the schedule, or we'll just get the data uniformly, well structured from the report, and we'll just start updating the P6. Potentially, the planner will need some other meetings to evaluate the forecast and how the actuals are impacting the critical path and so on. But that's kind of what we want to spend time on, kind of analyzing the future. We don't want to spend time sitting there with a site engineer just to get the updates, or sending spreadsheets to get the updates. So that's the idea behind of the app, that it's not the planner who is updating activities through the app, is the person who is delivering the job, who is on the go, updating that on the app, and then getting that information directly on your report, like without intermediate step, without spreadsheets in the middle, you know?
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I have one question. This is Igor. I'm curious about if you can speak a little bit about your experience with tapping data directly from the P6 SQL Server by way of example. Obviously, you got to map out the schema and know what you're pulling, but I'm curious about your experience as far as particularly the date values, because, well, they're not scheduled, right? So the information that you'd be pulling would not be really valid, because, you know, the information is not F9, right, as it comes to you, right? So what's been your experience with that particular process?
You mean the process of how you connect to that data, or how you validate the data? I didn't get that bit.
Yeah, so in the instance, in the example that you gave, you're either exporting individual P6 file data either via the spreadsheets, or you're dropping an XCR file into a folder, which then you're targeting using Power Query, pulling that data in. But I'm curious as far as your experience of tapping directly into the SQL database. So if you're tapping into the P6 or SQL database, and you know which fields to target based on the latest, whatever version of P6 you're using and its schema, date values, I'm thinking in particular that you would pull as they sit in the database, they're not really scheduled. So meaning the algorithm hasn't
Okay.
applied, right? So
Right.
you're pulling incorrect data. And I haven't really experimented too much with it, so I'm kind of curious if you have, and what.
No, I got your point. I got your point. Yeah, that's a really good question. So connecting, for example, to a database, in this case, P6 is an example, it's not that hard. That the connection bit is not the difficult one, right? So basically to connect to a database, you just need to know the name of the server and then the name of the database, and then you will need to have some credentials to access that database, and potentially that any IT guy could give you what is the access credential for that, or will give you access to that. So that's as far as you need for connecting from Power BI to a database. So that bit is not difficult. That's really straightforward if you have the privileges to access that database. So that's straightforward. Then you connect to P6 database. You need to be aware that you have within P6 database schema, you have 170 tables. So as you said, kind of you need to know where to dig in, right? There's so many data in there, and most of these tables are just administrative tables that P6 uses to run the database, really. So from those 170, when you, for example, export an XR file, from those 170, only 60 tables comes with that XR file. So, well, that reduces the amount of searching, right? And from those 60 tables, actually, the ones I'm using to generate my project controls reporting is basically goes around between 15 and 20 tables. So that's everything I need to pull out all my reporting. So now, coming back to your question about like, okay, data is gonna be sat there in the P6 database, but you don't know if that someone has done the F9 and that's kind of that latest data. So there are so many ways within P6 database that you can contrast that and validate that. For example, it's incredible the amount of granularity that you can go when you are connected to a database, because you can say for each individual activity, you can see the status. Who was the person who updated this the last time and when was that? So you can immediately know if this data that you just collected, when was the last time it was updated. So you can be, okay, this is 1 month ago was updated, so that this is definitely not the data I want to get, right? So just by having those fields that are in the database that actually you cannot see them directly in the user interface when you're opening P6. They are just going to be fields that get stored because you are using P6, you are amending one date, and that row, that activity is going to have in the database one timestamp when you made that change, that amendment, right? So that gets stored in P6, and then that's for validation. And then the other thing I usually get as a question is that, okay, you see, if I'm connected to the SQL database, how can I control my report freeze? You know, because at some point I want to freeze things up, right? And I want to say this is the status at the end of this month or this period. And then if someone is messing with P6 that is connected to the database, and if someone is changing right now, my report is going to change because it's connected directly. So how you deal with that? And that's a different challenge, but it's also part of that. And my suggestion with that and the way I handle that in my projects is that, yeah, we have one live program in P6. That is the one we constantly update, right? We enter the planner center to that project and constantly update that. And whenever we want to freeze that, so we say, okay, this is the validated data. This is going to be the status report of the schedule at this time. So what we do is we make a copy of that project. We put that in a different reporting node in the EPS of P6, and we're going to have an EPS that's going to be kind of validated project for reporting, right? So now my report, my Power BI connected to that database, need to search for the tables and filter that tables by those projects that belong to that reporting node that is data validated. So whenever someone drops a new project in there, we know that that has been validated and is ready for report. So that's the way we control that process when connected directly to a database. So it's just kind of the matter of how you set up your reporting architecture beforehand, right?
Thank you.
Cool. So over there, Ketul is asking me on the chat, so I'm just gonna write this down for the people in the meeting. So my contact details, I can share with you my email, so giancarlod@gmail.com. So it's gonna be there in the chat. If you have any questions, you want to dig in more about these business intelligence tools, well, you can contact me, and I can share some insights as well.
Yeah, many of you have requested a copy of the presentation or the recording also. I'm not sure about the recording, but Giancarlo, is it okay to share the presentation with everyone?
Yeah, no, I already sent that to you, Ramani. So you have that.
So we will send to the members of the section.
Yeah. Please go ahead, share them.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. It's been a really nice time to present, and hopefully you got some insights about this topic. If you want to follow this up, please contact me. Ask Romani. You're gonna get the slides as well. I was really happy to participate. I'm sorry we couldn't take the full hour to share some lessons learned, but anyway, I think it was time enough to at least give a quick glance of what you can get using Power BI and how you can apply that to project control tool. That in the end, for me, the 3 pillars that we want to get is gain efficiency in our reporting solution, and with that efficiency, I'm saying getting automation, getting enhanced visualizations, and then getting deeper insights. So those are the 3 things I want you to take from this session. How you can automate things with Power BI, how you can enhance the visualization, because Power BI has these really nice graphs, and how you can get deeper insights. And when I'm saying deeper insight, probably I haven't mentioned that during the session, but you can pick that data from P6, from any other tool, but you can elaborate on that. So that's how Power BI has a formula language that is called DAX, data analysis expressions, and it's kind of some formulas that you could use exactly the same in Excel, like VLOOKUP or index or whatever it is. So some set of formulas you have as well in Power BI. So you can collect the raw data from P6, and you saw my dashboard with the metrics for schedule integrity, and I was measuring how many activities was with high float and so on. So those were calculated using DAX. So you use DAX to get this deeper insight on top of that raw data you're getting from your data source. So that's also really important. We don't just want to replicate whatever P6 is saying or RS Prism is saying. You want to get deeper insights, and for that you will use Power BI and DAX formulas to calculate that on top of the input data. So that's kind of the wrapping up everything we want to share today. Right?
Thank you, Giancarlo. Again, that was a great presentation.
I just wanted to say thanks a lot. We generally clap at the end of the show if you're in physical presence, but hey, great presentation.
Thank you. Hope everyone found it informative.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carlo.
Thank you.
Have a lovely afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.